All right, we played one Ryan Clark comment. There's another one, but if you just joined us, let's go back to the first one. Ryan Clark on ESPN said this about Brock Purdy.
I'm about to make a confession. The single hardest thing I had to do this year was act like Brock Purdy deserved to be in the conversations with the other people we're mentioning in that tweet. Because he was playing extremely well and operating in that offense and distributing the ball to Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, we had to continue to include him in conversations with the Lamar Jacksons. We had to continue to include him in conversations with the Josh Allen. Those things are not alike. Brock Purdy is a fine player. Brock Purdy can operate in Kyle Shanahan's offense at an extremely efficient level. Brock Purdy doesn't raise the level of play of anyone around him. And so when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, the people around them benefit from having those sorts of players at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy benefits from having the sort of players he has at the skill positions around him.
It's more of the same.
Yeah.
But the idea that Brock Purdy doesn't elevate the people around him, I think, is a crazy take. The other thing that I noticed, especially this time around and listening to it for a second time, do you see the past tense nature of what he's saying? And that's fascinating to me. And it goes to the point I made earlier with regard to the idea that no matter what your Purdy take was before this game, you walked out of it and went, see, I was right.
Right.
And Ryan Clark is speaking about this as it's now been decided. I do not need to speak about Brock Purdy in these terms anymore. And I do not need to put him in the same conversation with other quarterbacks anymore. Well, really, Ryan, I think Brock's playing this weekend.
Yeah.
I saw that tweet pointed at Amy Trask from another people. Looks like 4 terrific quarterbacks are going to be watching Brock Purdy play this weekend.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, you can sit here and act like that performance empowered you. It was not a good performance. He did not play well for the majority of the night. But how can you walk out of there feeling empowered about the idea that Brock Purdy is not really that good when he also spent the fourth quarter doing all of the things that everyone's been saying he can't do?
And how can you put it in terms of past tense, even for this season, when he's got one game, maybe 2 more games yet to play? And if he goes out against Detroit and he goes 31 of 35 and throws for 330 and 4 touchdowns, and they beat the Lions 41-38.
Now what?
What then?
Yeah.
What do we talk about in terms of being Ryan Clark and other naysayers when he goes to the Super Bowl and he actually is the reason, and Deebo doesn't play potentially, and we don't know, and I look forward to getting Doc Pandia's thoughts tomorrow about what he thinks in terms of the injury, because we won't know about Deebo until we get much closer to game time. Maybe even he's a game time decision. We won't really know, but what do you say about Brock Purdy if he goes out, balls out, and they win, and then they go to the Super Bowl? So I think it's interesting you pointing that out about Ryan Clark in the past tense nature of the argument, because this is not a done deal. Brock Purdy is still playing, and it's down to Mahomes, MVP, 2-time Super Bowl winner, and Lamar Jackson, 1 MVP, probably getting number 2 here in the matter of 3 weeks. Jared Goff, he's been to a Super Bowl, number 1 overall pick, having a nice year for the upstart Lions, and then Mr. Irrelevant. So do we say that there are 3 terrific quarterbacks
Apparently.
and then Brock Purdy?
Apparently. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to pick at Amy Trask because I love Amy, but Ryan Clark is kind of furthering that narrative. You've got Lamar, who's a two-way freak of nature. You've got Mahomes, face of the league, and the best player in football. And you've got Jared Goff, who nobody seems to want to throw shade at anymore because of what he's done against Detroit. And then there's Kyle Shanahan's quarterback.
Right.
And Christian McCaffrey's signal caller.
It's odd.
And George Kittle's thrower of the football.
Oh, he's distributing the ball to his weapons.
Right.
What is Jared Goff doing? What is Mahomes doing?
Right.
I mean,
the Jared
Mahomes
Goff one to me is more
know.
interesting because if you want to talk weapons, Kansas City they don't have a lot of weapons.
They got a couple. They got
a tough running back. They've got maybe the best tight end in football, and we could have a Kittle-Kelsey debate maybe Super Bowl week if it comes to that. And then he's got a bunch of youngsters. And then he's got, Valdez-Scantling,
right,
who actually played well.
Rashee Rice has turned into a real receiver.
Rashee Rice is legit.
He's turned into a receiver.
Mecole Hardman coughing it up at the 1. But it's not like Mahomes has a lot of, quote, weapons. If you wanted to pick any group of weapons in the league, I think you'd be picking between Detroit and the Niners right now.
Yeah, probably, as far as skill position players on the team.
Right.
Ryan Clark wasn't done. The conversation
Not
twisted.
done?
No. We got to talk about Jordan Love first.
Even with Jordan Love throwing an inopportune, inexplicable interception to end the game, I was sitting there watching them going, man, the NFL world should be excited that Jordan Love doesn't play for the San Francisco 49ers. And we are starting, at least in my opinion, to get into the realm the San Francisco 49ers used to be with Jimmy Garoppolo. Where it was, with Kyle Shanahan calling plays, we could be really good. With the players around him, we could be really good. But can our quarterback take us to the next level? And now that it's getting down to the critical football moments, to the moments that turn good players into legends, that turn good teams into teams we never forget, you're starting to see. You don't take Brock Purdy over Jared Goff right now, and you for sure don't take Brock Purdy over the two dudes on the other side in the AFC. So if you're the San Francisco 49ers, you're thinking to yourself right now, this team that we were starting to run through our quarterback better run through Uncle Shannon's nephew, Christian McCaffrey. Because if it doesn't, they're going to find themselves at home again without a ring.
I will tell you this right now. Yes, I do take Brock Purdy over Jared Goff. 100%. And I love Jared Goff. Jared Goff won me $900 here in the 95-7 The Game League.
Putting it out there.
I'm sorry. Yes, he did. Thank you. Thank you, Grandy. I know that was hard for you.
Should have been me.
I know. It should have been. Jared Goff's a good player. Jared Goff is a good player. But when you factor in mobility, youth, certainly price, all of that stuff, yes, I would take Brock Purdy over Jared Goff. That's another question I'd like to ask. Why do we never refer to Brock Purdy as a young player? Why is he supposed to be a finished product? I even remember conversations you and I had after last year where you were like, I don't think he's going to get any better.
How could he?
And I was like, I don't know how he wouldn't.
Yeah.
And he
got better.
Well, that's how everyone feels about Jordan Love. You look at Jordan Love and you're like, ooh, this is going to be good. How come that doesn't apply to 23-year-old Brock Purdy with 25 starts? I don't know.
Yeah, and it does to Jordan Love, who's 25, and he's played in just about as many games as Brock Purdy in terms of his time in Green Bay, yet he gets the young quarterback can still get better label, but Brock Purdy doesn't. I wonder where that lies with so many people who are casting shade on Brock Purdy or giving him that hate, because it's easy to look at the game on Saturday and say, well, if the Niners would have lost that game, then you could put the blame in many ways on Brock Purdy because he was not very good for 3.5 quarters, but then they needed a drive with 6 minutes left, and he led them on a drive. So I don't know what else he could do other than win the game. Yeah, he could play better, but he played well enough when they needed him to, and they won the game.
I'm trying to look up how many games Jordan Love has actually started in his career. He's played in 27.
Yeah.
But some of those have come in relief of Aaron Rodgers. I think it's 18. I think it's 18 games that Jordan Love has started.
18 starts.
Yeah, okay.
Including the playoffs, I think it's 20.
So Brock has 7 more, although one of them he barely got to play. So shouldn't these be comparable players?
Sure.
Shouldn't they be considered like Jordan's had more years in a system? This is his 4th year in the league.
Right.
Learning under Aaron Rodgers. The Garoppolo thing, come on. Come on. Like, look, are there questions about Purdy being able to get over on a Lamar or a Patrick? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope after this Sunday we get to see another shot at it and see if he can do it. I think that there are questions about that, and that's fair. Putting Garoppolo's name into this and acting like the 49ers are now a team that just has to hand the ball off, dink, dunk. If it's more than 25 yards down the field, forget about it. It's going to be overthrown or what have you. Kyle Shanahan feels locked up as a play caller. All of that, to me, we're nowhere near that. I don't understand that comment at all.
No, and that's what people are going to do to try to make the comparison between Garoppolo and Purdy to serve their own argument. And you look at, where you were in terms of, the numbers that they had. Garoppolo in 2019, when he went 13-3, his QB rating was 102, not as good as Brock. His yards per attempt, not as good. He almost had 4,000 yards, not quite what Brock had. I know he had 16 games, not 17. The numbers are somewhat similar, but when you just watch what Brock is doing in terms of the throws he makes versus what Jimmy was doing, it's not close.
And he's a second-year player. I'm not going to tell you he's perfect. That would be absurd. He did not play well on Saturday night. For the majority of the game, it was a bad game for him. He's a young player.
Right.
He's a young player.
Jimmy G had only made 10 starts when he started that year in 2019.
Yep.
So he was older, yes, but in terms of his experience level, it was pretty comparable in terms of how many starts.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Smart choice for low auto loan rates and super simple online application process. Let's go to Tim in Berkeley. Hi, Tim. You're on with Willard and Dibs. What the heck are you doing?
Hey, man, you guys are entertaining me for sure. It's a fascinating conversation. I wanted to call and confess that I was wrong last week, I think, and I did change my mind about Purdy. I was all in last week, but I forgot about the wet ball thing that I saw earlier in the season. And when this guy comes out with the glove and then it's no glove, you got problems with that, and that's just really unfortunate. But beyond all that, if it's dry, I got no problems comparing Purdy to any of those other guys, and hopefully he can work out the wet ball. As far as why he doesn't get in the same breath with those other quarterbacks, I think have you guys seen the Joe Montana commercial for Guinness where the guy asked him if he was a tennis player? I think that's what we're looking at with Brock Purdy. He doesn't look like I'm almost 60 years old. When I was a kid, Brock Purdy looked like an NFL quarterback. Now Brock Purdy doesn't look like an NFL quarterback anymore.
Yeah, doesn't even look like a tennis player, Tim,
no,
quite frankly.
No, he doesn't even look like a lacrosse player. I mean, Brock Purdy, maybe this will help people out. Like, Brock Purdy's not as good as Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. He can't do some of those things. He's not as good. Are we having a hard time with that?
I don't even know what that means.
Thank you.
He's not as good. ...
It doesn't matter.
What does that mean?
He's the highest rated quarterback in the league.
Right, but he's not as good.
You're looking for... He's not as talented. There are things... Like you watch Josh Allen.
Oh, my God. Last night, I'm watching with the father-in-law.
Yeah.
And he throws that ball to Diggs. And
it's like,
my father-in-law said, how far did that go in the air?
Like 65 yards.
At least.
Yeah.
And it was on the money. Catch the ball, Diggs. Catch the ball. I mean, he laid that thing in. I thought it went 70 yards.
He's incredible.
Might have gone 800 yards.
You know what else he is, though? He's a lot more reckless.
Yeah.
He's a lot more
better
reckless.
Runner.
And,
God, he's tough.
And what? He's been to one AFC Championship game?
Poor guy. Not his fault.
Not his fault, but not his fault.
Well,
I mean, the guy was
open. He was
open.
Terrific last night.
The play before the field goal, he threw it right, like there was an open receiver in the back of the end zone, and he hucked it 5 yards right.
Well, if we want to talk about open receivers, Brock threw probably 8 to 10 yesterday that were straight dirt balls.
He had a bad game.
He can't throw the wet ball. I was right. I had that right last week.
You know what's interesting about that? Because
glove, no glove. What are we doing here, kid?
Okay, so that is a concern, obviously, especially when you get to the playoffs. And it was clearly in his head. He's wearing a glove. He's wiping his hand in the middle of plays, cradling the ball in the left hand. None of that is good. None of that's good. But doesn't that make the last drive that much more impressive? What the hell happened?
It was raining, right?
It was worse.
Well, when Jordan Love got the ball back, it was cats and dogs. I know that.
Correct.
It was pouring, so it was off and on, but mostly on from what I could tell.
That's what I'm getting at. Brock Purdy had a bad night, and then if you transfer this to another player, a more accomplished player, or someone who we think is more talented, if Brady did something like this, where you're just off, you're off all night, you had a couple balls that should have been picked and they weren't, it's just one of them nights. But then you get the ball with 5 minutes to go, and you're down 4, and the rain is driving sideways. And you beepity-boppity-boop right down the field and get a touchdown. If somebody else does that, we go, dude, legend. He found another level when it really mattered most.
Right.
But not Brock. Not Brock. He did it in the end. Not a great game. I definitely think this is a kick the can down the road situation. There's more information to be revealed about Brock Purdy. He's in his second year. He's a young player. But as I said earlier, I've never seen an athlete. I've never seen an athlete, particularly those who kind of come from nowhere, produce at such a level and receive such a reaction. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, the reaction now is based on new information, which is what we saw on Saturday. And to me, there's two different ways to look at it. You can look at it as Brock didn't play well, or you could look at it as Brock didn't play well and then he played great when you needed him to play great. And that's the way I look at it. And it's a victory Monday, and you can look at all the things the Niners didn't do well. And Kyle Shanahan was great in the postgame, talking about all three phases, how they need to be better. But this was a gritty game. This was a game that showed their character because they were down. And you think that the 49ers knew or didn't know that they were playing badly. The D-line knew that they didn't have any sacks. They knew that they were getting run on. Ambry Thomas knew that he'd gotten cooked a couple times. I think that everybody knew that they weren't playing great. Jake Moody knew that he had a kick blocked.
Yep.
And, George Kittle knew that he had a big drop. And all these things, these players know what's going on. And then you get the ball back with 6 minutes left, and you know you need a touchdown, and you go out there and you get it done. So sometimes these wins, to me, are worth more than if you go out, you look good, and you blow a team out.
Well, yeah, the bottom line is the 49ers so far this year didn't win close games.
They didn't have to.
Yeah. Well,
right?
but when it was close, they lost.
True.
So it was painful. It was stressful. Maybe it was the best thing for him.
That was a big-time character performance.
Yeah, no doubt. Rich in Los Altos here on Willard and Dibs. Hey, Rich, what are you doing?
Hey, guys, thanks for letting me on.
Yeah.
I'm a football nut. I'm a Niner nut. I don't understand a couple things. Maybe you guys can help me. It seems like they'd be easy to defend. I mean, they hardly ever throw it deep, but you can't do it. You just can't do it. So I think, it's a good thing Shanahan doesn't have one of those top quarterbacks because I think the league, it'd be like when Durant was over here. It'd break the whole thing. So anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.
Rich, thanks.
Rich.
What do you consider deep?
I think throws over 20 yards would be deep. Now, what Josh Allen did, attempting that pass to Stephon Diggs, now that's deep. That's a 65 yards in the air deep ball. And the Niners don't do that. They don't run a lot of go routes. They don't give Brock Purdy a 7-step drop and say, just go ahead and cut that thing loose. So for me, deep is anything over 20 yards.
Yeah, and the Niners do that a lot. And you had looked this up about a week or two ago. Air yards downfield. Where was Brock?
I think he was 7th. Yeah, 7th. I looked it up on Friday. And that's intended air yards. So on all throws, the intended air yards. Now, Saturday, they didn't throw the ball deep down the field. And even on plays that were designed, he was checking down a lot early. And that's where I look at the film, and I watched it again today. I'm a little concerned over his confidence level. Was it the wet ball? Was it him feeling really tight? Because there were some throws that were open that he normally would take a chance on, and he didn't.
Yeah, and then there were some chances he took where I was like, dude, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
That pass to Jawan Jennings in between 3 defenders, I don't know how the hell that got home. And so
he climbed the ladder.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and Jawan had an amazing catch, but by the same time, I'm like, no,
we're not doing that.
That's a terrible decision. Like, right? That's the old no, 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 yes play.
Totally.
That's what that was.